Hi, so today we're going to be going over the back bending technique that you will need to press up into a wheel pose. So we're not going to go into dropping back into wheel pose today, but I'm going to work in the foundation of what wheel pose is and how to get the most out of it and use the best technique you could possibly use while you're in this posture so that when you walk away from your practice, you feel amazing afterwards instead of maybe like, ugh, my low spine is kind of achy, or my shoulders hurt, or some of those common issues that happen when people start to take on this pretty advanced posture, Chakrasana or wheel pose. All right, so I'm gonna run through really quick your setup, because your setup is everything. If the setup is wrong, then the rest of the posture kind of can take a toll too. So when we're coming into wheel pose, it's best that your toes are as parallel as possible. So you're coming here, and I like to look at my feet as I come down and grab my heels and bring them as close to my seat as possible, because then I'll have less work to do once I press up into wheel pose. Now from here, I'm gonna get my arms out of the way just so you can see my spine. So I have my spine flat to the floor, but I'm about to start the bend. So I'm gonna lift my ribs off of the mat, and I want to feel this gentle tug of the skin between the ribs and the hips so that I'm pulling the ribs away from the hip as much as I can. Now, if the ribs are away from the hips as much as I can, then I'm going to use my entire spine instead of just throwing it into those thicker lumbar, lower spine bones and kind of targeting just those muscles there, which happen to so many people who start a back bending practice. So ribs are away from the hips and the ribs are off the floor. I've already initiated this back bend from here. Now, from here, you're gonna set your hands. So your thumb is towards your ear and your fingers are towards your shoulder. And a lot of the times I see people's elbows point out like this. You want to squeeze the elbows in, because once I do that, I get to use this big old boy, the bicep, all right? If I do this, I don't know what I'm using. I mean, I guess I'll go chest it up, or I'll use my core or my spine, but it's gonna be a little harder through the shoulder, so I wanna use my bicep as much as I can, so I'm gonna squeeze the elbows in so the elbows are pointing up. Now from here, a lot of people miss this step, and I'm gonna get my arms out of the way so you can see. I'm going to take my head and roll it. So it's now in the back bend too, and the chin is away from the chest. I'm rolling my eyes past my eyebrows and I'm looking for the mat, because that's what I'm gonna be looking at when I get into wheel pose, all right? So I don't wanna be looking up at the ceiling and hoping that I get there. I'm already telling the body, we're gonna look down, because that's where we're gonna be soon. All right, so I'm gonna reset my hands and squeeze my elbows in. Now I'm about to go for the press. All right, so I'm gonna press my hands into the floor and go straight up into wheel. All right, now from wheel, if this is your first wheel, I highly recommend you lift your heels up. This is going to create a more even back bend for you. So if you're tighter in the front of the hips, then please lift your heels up instead of keeping them down. And also, a lot of people tend to turn their toes out. If you feel like that happened, then please see if you can get your toes to turn back in. All right, so I'm gonna come up on the heels, and then from here, as you can see, my shoulders are not stacked over my wrists at all, and my elbows are probably bending. All right, so I'm sagging a little bit. Now, to get more of the bend in the thoracic spine, I need to lock out the elbows, because the elbows and the thoracic spine, they're super linked. So make sure that you're pressing and locking out the elbows. Now I'm going to use my fingertips too, so I'm not ratcheting into the wrist. Then from here, I'm going to press the chest through a little bit. And you can rock a couple of times to see if you can move through this mobility you'll need for the shoulders. If it feels better to drop your heels, go ahead and do that. And I'm pressing my hips up to the ceiling and really working the spine. Keep pressing the chest through. And in my vision, I know my shoulders are stacking over the wrists when I can't see my wrists anymore. All right, now to come out of this, you're gonna look up first, and then you're gonna allow your knees to bend and come down. And hopefully you smile like that. So those are some of the finer techniques used for wheel. Now I'm going to show you, if you're just starting off in wheel, It can be kind of frustrating, especially if you have not built your arm strength up yet. All right, to push up into this back bend feels like you're carrying like 50 pounds up an endless staircase. All right, so it can feel like quite a bit of, to get up. So here's a couple of tips. If you're someone that does all of this stuff and then you're like, and you can't get off the floor. So the thing that's gonna lead you up is this, lifting your hips up. Once the hips are lifting, then you just have to get the rest of the body up. So that's why a good prep for wheel is always to pull into this great bridge pose, pulling the ribs away from the hips. So if this is really hard to achieve for you, you're gonna work for bridge, all right? You can bring the hands underneath. You're gonna make sure the toes are parallel, press the tricep and the pinky finger down and keep pulling the ribs away from the hips and squeeze the knees in, all right? So that is where you would work. If that's really hard for you, if you're in a class and someone says wheel, opt for bridge so you can build that leg strength, because wheel requires quite a bit of leg strength. And a lot of people tend to shut their legs off in their back bending practice, whereas if you turn your legs down, you're gonna have much better, deeper, safer bends. All right, so if you're beyond bridge and you're starting to get a little air, then the next thing you're gonna do is you're gonna set your hands, you're gonna tilt your chin, you're gonna squeeze your elbows in. Here we go, you're gonna press down, lift your hips up, and slide onto the top of the head. And squeeze your elbows in, don't let the elbows come out. Squeeze the elbows in so that the hands can support you. Then walk your hands in, and if you can, press up. So you're gonna go one step at a time into your wheel, press up, all right? And then to come down, you can either look up or you can bring the top of the head down and then chin in. But notice how I left my hands on the floor while my head was still top of head down. So always being really just kind to your body in your yoga practice. You're here to celebrate your body, to be grateful for it, and never to like harm it or do any of that nasty stuff. So let me get off the floor. So hopefully this helps you and helps you realize some of the back bending technique. So just to get off the black mat a little bit and show you, you want to make sure ribs are away from the hips. Your shoulders are retracted so they're pressing into each other. Already pretty deep bend. And then from here, look up and away. But notice how I haven't dropped my head to my shoulders at all. There's some space. I could put about 2 fingers between the nape of my neck and my shoulder. You should have some space there. Then you can come back into a bend. And then once you've come all the way through the thoracic spine, notice how this is still long here. Then I can drop the head back a little bit more. This will put more pressure on my thoracic spine to bend. And then finally go into the lumbar. All right, so just a quick hint at some good basic back bending technique. So hope this helps. If you have any questions, throw them in the comment section. Be happy to connect with you over this work, or send me a message. You can DM me on Instagram or through the Facebook page. I'd be happy to connect with you there as well. Or just head over to my website, meetmeonyourmat.yoga, and there's a contact thing, and you can message me through there. Hopefully this finds you well. If this kind of work interests you in your practice, you're ready for that next step, that's what I teach. My expertise is to move someone who has a beginner's yoga practice that's been practicing for, at least 3 to 6 months, and they kind of have that basic foundation, and they're ready for a little bit more. And we just see breakthrough moments on the daily in this program. People taking their first arm balance, doing their first deep back bend like wheel, getting into full camel, stuff like that. So working a little bit different and working in such a specific way so that as we work for the steepness, there's very little injury or anything like that happens, because we're just waiting for those magic moments to happen and working towards them instead of forcing them. So come work with me if that speaks to you. I'd love to have you with us. It's such a unique program and unique community, and we're just having fun building it up. But if I never see you in class, that's okay. I hope you take these little back bending gems with you to your mat and your practice. Have a great day, everybody. I'll meet you on the mat soon.